My name is Hollis Bennett. I am 38 years old, and I have worked as a park ranger in Yosemite National Park for a little over 8 years now. Most days the job looks exactly like you would expect. I hand out maps at the visitor center. I remind hikers to carry enough water before they start up the mist trail. I have treated more overheated tourists on the switchbacks below Vernal Fall than I can count, sitting them down in the shade with a bottle of water and a cold compress until the ambulance arrives. I have chased black bears out of campgrounds using nothing but a truck horn and a flashlight. That part of the job, anyone could guess. What most visitors never learn is that the rangers who work here follow a second list of rules. You will not find it printed in any handbook. Nobody at the entrance station will ever bring it up while you are paying your entrance fee. I'm going to tell you what is on that list, why it exists, and why, if you ever plan on hiking through a place like this again, you should remember every word of it. Yosemite kills people every single year. That is not something the Park Service puts on a billboard, but it is true. On an average year, somewhere between 13 and 15 people die inside this park, and almost every one of those deaths has an explanation that fits neatly into a report. People fall, people drown, people get caught in weather they were not prepared for. This park is beautiful, and it is also unforgiving, and those two facts sit right next to each other every single day. I want to tell you about two of those deaths, because they shaped how I approached this job long before I ever learned about the other list. The first one was not a death at all, though it came close. A college student named Derek Osai was hiking near Tenaya Lake with two friends on a clear afternoon in July. He climbed out onto a slab of granite above the water to get a photograph. The rock around that lake looks solid and dry from a distance, but a thin layer of grit sits on top of it, and that grit makes the surface far more slippery than it appears. Derek's foot went out from under him, and he slid down an exposed slope of rock for almost 60 feet before a stand of manzanita bushes stopped him. We got the call at 2:40 in the afternoon. By the time our team reached him, he had a broken collarbone, 4 broken ribs, and a scalp laceration that had bled through most of his shirt. He stayed conscious the entire time, which the paramedics later told me was the only reason he made it through without further injury. Had he blacked out on that slope, he likely would have kept sliding straight into the lake. He survived. He mailed the search and rescue team a letter the following spring thanking us for the work we did that day. That is the version of danger most people picture when they think about a place like this, and it is real, and it happens more often than most visitors realize. The second story does not end the same way. A tourist named Walter Briggs was passing through the park with his wife in early June, and he waded into the Merced River at a spot that looked calm from the bank. The water in the Merced is fed by snowmelt, and even in June it runs colder and faster underneath the surface than it looks. Walter went in to cool off after a long hike. He was gone within a minute. It took our team 3 days to recover his body, almost a mile downstream, caught against a fallen log. I am telling you both of these stories because I want you to understand something before we go any further. This park is dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with anything unnatural. That danger is documented. It is studied. It fills an entire filing cabinet at the ranger station. There is a second kind of danger here that does not go into that filing cabinet the same way. It does not appear in the annual report. It gets discussed in low voices, usually late at night, usually only between rangers who have worked here long enough to trust one another. Every ranger at this park trains on 7 official safety rules, and if you take nothing else from this story, take these, because they will keep you alive whether or not you believe anything else I am about to tell you. Carry more water than you think you will need. Stay on marked trails. Do not attempt a long hike after dark unless you have real experience navigating at night. Keep your distance from wildlife, no matter how used to people it appears to be. Tell someone your planned route and your expected return time before you leave. Use a bear canister for any food you bring into the backcountry. And be careful near rivers and streams, even the ones that look shallow and slow. Those 7 rules sit on a laminated card at every entrance station in this park. Follow them, and your odds of walking out exactly the way you walked in go up significantly. There is a second list. Nobody prints that one anywhere. I learned about it during my first week on the job, back when I was 29 years old and still learning where half the trailheads even started. I was paired for training with a ranger named Icarus Jones, a man who had worked this park for close to 30 years by that point, and who most of the younger staff treated with something close to reverence. Icarus did not talk much. When he did talk, people listened. We were driving back from a routine patrol near Tuolumne Meadows on my 4th day, when he pulled the truck onto the shoulder for no reason I could see, and put it in park. You are going to hear things from other rangers, he said, things that are not in your training manual. I would rather you hear them from me first, and I would rather you take them seriously. I asked him what he meant. He looked at me for a long moment before he answered, "Have you seen a staircase out here yet? Standing on its own, not attached to anything?" I told him no, and I laughed a little because it struck me as an odd question. He did not laugh with me. "You will," he said, "and when you do, you are going to want to know what to do. So I am telling you now before you find out the hard way." The conversation lasted almost 20 minutes, and by the end of it, I understood that Icarus was completely serious in a way I had rarely seen a grown man be serious about anything. I did not believe him that day. I want to be honest about that. I thought maybe this was some kind of tradition rangers passed down to new hires, a story meant to scare rookies during their first week. It took me years and things I saw with my own eyes to understand that Icarus was not trying to scare me. He was trying to keep me alive. There are 4 rules on that second list. Every ranger who has worked here longer than a season or 2 knows them, and every one of them will tell you the same thing if you ask why the rules exist. Nobody knows why. Nobody has ever gotten a straight answer. The rules simply are, the same way certain laws of this park simply are, and the rangers who ignore them do not get a second chance to learn from the mistake. The first rule is that you never go into the water above a waterfall. Not your feet, not your hands, not even leaning out for a photograph. The second rule is that if you see a staircase standing alone in the deep woods, made of wood, painted yellow, attached to nothing, you do not climb it, no matter what you think you hear coming from the top. The third rule is that you always carry a pack of mint Tic Tacs, and they have to be green. Not orange, green. The fourth rule is that if you ever find a mirror standing alone in the forest, with no house around it and no reason for it to be there, you cover it immediately, then break it, then bury every piece in a separate hole, spaced far enough apart that no 2 pieces end up touching the same patch of dirt. I am going to walk you through each of those rules the way I learned them, because each one came with a story, and every one of those stories is true. Rule number 1, you never go into the water above a waterfall, not to cool your feet, not to fill a bottle, not for a photograph, no matter how good the shot looks. I want you to picture the top of Nevada fall the way it actually looks, because the reason this rule exists only makes sense once you understand the terrain. Above the fall, the Merced River spreads out across a wide shelf of granite that has been worn smooth by thousands of years of running water. In late summer, when the flow drops, that shelf looks almost gentle. The water moves in thin sheets over flat rock, sometimes only 6 inches deep, warmed by sitting in the sun all day. People look at it and see a wadding pool. What they do not see is that underneath that thin, warm layer, the granite has been carved into channels that funnel the current toward the edge, and the closer you get to the drop, the faster that current moves. There is no line painted on the rock to mark where safe water ends. By the time you feel the pull, you are already caught in it. Nevada Fall drops 594 feet onto a field of broken granite boulders. Nobody who goes over that edge survives the landing. The incident that taught me to fear that place happened during my 3rd year on the job, in the middle of July, on one of the hottest weekends of that summer. A family from Arizona named the Hendricks had hiked up the mist trail to see the top of the fall. There were 4 of them, a father named Grant, a mother named Denise, and 2 sons, 19-year-old Tyler and 16-year-old Colton. They had done exactly what thousands of visitors do every season. They had stepped past the railing at the official overlook, out onto the open granite to get a better view. Colton walked out onto the shelf to fill an empty water bottle from the flowing river. Tyler told investigators afterward that the water only came up to his brother's ankles when he started. Colton took 2 more steps forward to reach a deeper pool where the water ran clearer. On the 3rd step, his foot slid out from under him on the smooth rock, and instead of falling straight down, the current caught him and pulled him sideways toward the drop. Grant went in after his son without a moment of hesitation. That is what parents do, and I understand it, and I do not fault him for a single second of that decision. But the same current that took Colton took Grant as well, and by the time the rest of the family reached the edge and looked down, there was nothing to see but white water breaking against the rocks far below. We received the call at 4:17 that afternoon. I was part of the response team that reached the base of the fall 2 hours later. Colton's body arrived at the bottom relatively intact, close to where the boulders meet the pool below. Grant's body was found the following morning, roughly 300 yards downstream, caught in a logjam. I remember standing at the base of that waterfall with spray coating my jacket, watching 2 litters carried out, and thinking about the way Denise and Tyler looked in that moment. I am not going to attempt to describe that kind of grief, because nothing I could say would do it justice. I will only tell you that it changed the way I looked at that waterfall for good. That was a terrible day, and as far as I know, it was an entirely ordinary tragedy. Rivers pull people over waterfalls. It happens in parks across this country every single year. I do not believe there was anything unnatural about what happened to the Hendrick family, and none of the rangers who worked at recovery ever suggested otherwise. But that same summer, a few weeks after the Hendrick recovery, I saw my first body that did not fit into any explanation I could accept, and Icarus was standing right next to me when I saw it. We got a call about a hiker who had gone missing near the base of Nevada Fall 2 days earlier. A solo hiker in his 50s who had told the Wilderness Permit Office he planned to camp one night and come back down. When he did not check in, his sister called the park, and Icarus and I were assigned to the search. We found him on the second day, in a shallow pool below the fall, in water no more than 2 feet deep. Icarus reached him first. I remember him going still. He did not speak for almost a full minute. The man had drowned. That was the official cause of death, and I have no reason to doubt it. What I could not explain, and what Icarus would not explain to me even when I asked directly, was the position we found him in. He was sitting upright on the bottom of that shallow pool, cross-legged, hands resting on his knees, facing directly upstream toward the waterfall. His eyes were open. There was no current strong enough at that depth in that specific pool to hold a body in that position. A drowned man in moving water tumbles. He catches on rocks. He ends up face down or twisted against an obstruction. He does not sit. I asked Icarus what he thought had happened. He looked at the man for a long time before he answered. I think he saw something he wanted a closer look at, Icarus said, and I think whatever it was wanted him to sit still long enough to look back. I did not understand what that meant. I am still not sure I fully understand it now, but I never forgot it, and it was the first time I understood that Icarus was not simply repeating old rules out of habit. He believed every word of what he had told me in that truck. The clearest account I ever got of what might actually live in that water came from a ranger named Jareth Mitchell, who joined our staff 2 years after I did. Before Yosemite, Jareth had spent almost 6 years as a dive rescue specialist for a county sheriff's department in Oregon, recovering bodies from lakes and rivers as his full-time job. He was the most qualified diver on our staff by a wide margin, and for his first year with us, he handled every recovery that required someone to go under the surface. He stopped taking those assignments after an incident at the pool below Nevada Fall, in water barely 12 feet deep, searching for a lost pack a hiker had dropped near the edge above. Jareth told me about it one night at the ranger station, months later, when I asked him directly why he had stopped diving. We were the only 2 people in the building. He did not look at me while he talked. Visibility down there is usually decent, he said. Maybe 15, 20 feet once you get past the surface foam. I was maybe 8 feet down, following the pack strap along the bottom, when I saw another diver ahead of me. Full gear, same setup as mine, moving away from me along the bottom. I asked him who else had been down there. He shook his head. Nobody. I was the only diver on that call. I radioed the surface to ask if someone had gone in without telling me. They said no, absolutely not. I was alone down there. He kept following the shape, thinking it might be a shadow or a trick of the light. It stayed exactly the same distance ahead of him no matter how fast he swam, always at the edge of his visibility, always facing away from him. Then it turned around, Jareth said. He would not describe what he saw when it turned around. I asked him twice, and both times he changed the subject. I eventually understood he was not being difficult. He genuinely could not make himself say it out loud. What he did tell me was that he surfaced immediately, swam to the bank without finishing the search, and never volunteered for another underwater recovery again. He requested a transfer to general patrol duties the following month, and the park granted it without much discussion, because apparently he was not the first diver on staff to make that same request after a similar experience. I still do the job, he told me. I still love it here. I just do not go under anymore. Rangers who worked here before me told me the same thing you are telling your new guys now. Do not go in the water above a fall. I used to think that rule was about currents. I asked him what he thought it was about now. I think something down there wants you to come look at it, he said. And once you do, I do not think it lets go easy. That is rule number 1, and that is why every ranger who has worked this park long enough follows it without exception. It has nothing to do with how strong a swimmer you are. It has nothing to do with how calm the water looks. The current above every waterfall in this park will kill you on its own merits, and that would be reason enough by itself. But there are rangers on this staff, good rangers, experienced rangers, who believe something in that water is patient and intelligent and willing to wait a long time for someone to get close enough to see. Rule number 2, if you see a staircase standing alone in the deep forest, not attached to any building, not part of any trail, you do not climb it. You do not touch it. You radio it in and you walk away. I know how that sounds. A staircase, alone in the woods, is such a strange thing to warn someone about that most new rangers laugh the first time they hear it, the same way I did. Icarus did not laugh when he told me about it, and after what I saw, I stopped laughing too. These staircases, when they appear, are built from wood, painted a bright yellow that has faded slightly at the edges like paint left out in the sun for years. They typically have somewhere between 12 and 20 steps, a plain handrail on one side, and nothing at the top or bottom that explains why a staircase would be standing there. No house, no foundation, no cabin ruins nearby to account for it. They rise out of the forest floor, freestanding, leading up to open air, and after some period of time, anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, they are gone. With no sign that anything was ever built there at all, no disturbed dirt, no sawdust, no footprint of a foundation left behind. I saw one for the first time during my second year on the job, while searching for a missing hiker named Roy Calder, a 41-year-old man who had failed to check in after a planned 3-day trip near the Illilouette Creek drainage. Our search team spread out across a grid through dense forest, and on the second day, working alone along the edge of my assigned section, I came around a stand of lodgepole pines and found a staircase standing in a small clearing, leading up to nothing. I stopped completely still. I counted the steps, 16 of them, and I noticed the paint, a yellow so bright it looked freshly done despite everything else about the structure looking weathered and old. I did not climb it. Icarus had made sure of that months earlier, and some instinct beyond his warning told me not to get any closer than I already was. I radioed my location, backed away along the route I had come in on, and waited for another ranger to reach me before approaching again. By the time backup arrived 20 minutes later, the staircase was gone, not knocked over, not disassembled, gone, with the ground beneath it looking undisturbed, covered in the same pine needles and forest duff as the rest of the clearing. Roy Calder was found alive 4 days later, nearly 9 miles from where I had seen the staircase, disoriented and dehydrated, but otherwise unharmed. He had gotten turned around in unfamiliar terrain and had no memory of any staircase, no connection to what I had seen. To this day, I do not know whether what I saw had anything to do with his disappearance at all, and Icarus told me, when I described it to him afterward, that sometimes the staircases show up near a missing person case, and sometimes they do not, and nobody has ever found a pattern to explain which is which. Just know the rule, he told me. You see one, you leave it alone, no matter what. I understood the full weight of that rule 3 years later, during the search for a woman named Margaret Weathers. Margaret was 73 years old, undergoing treatment for stage 3 ovarian cancer, and had come to Yosemite with her daughter and son-in-law for what her family later told us she called her last good trip. She loved this park. She had been coming here since she was a young woman, decades earlier, and she wanted to see it one more time while she still had the strength to walk the shorter trails. On the second day of their visit, Margaret told her daughter she wanted to sit alone for a while near a quiet stretch of trail not far from Wawana, just to look at the trees without anyone talking to her. Her daughter agreed to give her 20 minutes and walked a short distance ahead with her husband. When she returned to the spot where she had left her mother, Margaret was gone. We received the call within the hour, and given Margaret's medical condition, this case was treated as a priority from the first minute. She needed medication on a strict schedule, and without it, her family told us, her condition could deteriorate rapidly within a day or two. The forecast for that evening called for a temperature drop into the low 30s overnight Fahrenheit, with a chance of early season snow at higher elevations, which made the timeline even tighter. A woman in her physical condition, without proper clothing for a night in dropping temperatures, did not have much time. We organized a full search within 2 hours, 3 ranger teams and a canine unit from a neighboring county, working outward in a grid from the last place her daughter had seen her. I was assigned to a section of forest about a half-mile from that starting point, working alongside a search dog named Duke and his handler. Duke picked up a scent almost immediately and pulled hard toward a stand of cedar trees, moving with the kind of certainty handlers learn to trust completely. He led us into a small clearing, and there, standing alone among the cedars, was a staircase. Yellow paint, 18 steps this time by my count, no structure at either end. Duke would not go near it. His handler told me later that in 6 years of working with that dog, she had never seen him refuse a scent trail the way he refused to approach that clearing. He sat down at the tree line, ears back, and would not move another step forward no matter how his handler encouraged him. I radioed the discovery in immediately, following protocol exactly the way Icarus had trained me. Search Command told us to hold position and wait for additional units before approaching further. We waited 11 minutes. When the second team arrived, the staircase was gone, the same way it had disappeared years earlier during the Calder search. But this time, near the base of where the staircase had stood, we found something that made this case different from anything I had encountered before. Margaret's cardigan sweater, folded neatly, sitting on top of a patch of undisturbed pine needles, along with her reading glasses, placed carefully on top of the folded fabric, as though she had set them down with great care before continuing on somewhere. We searched for 6 more days. We covered every square mile of forest within a 5-mile radius. The canine units picked up her scent twice more, both times leading toward locations where searchers reported finding nothing at all. No clearing, no staircase, no further sign of her. Margaret Weathers was never found. Her family held a memorial service the following spring, and I attended in uniform, along with 3 other rangers who had worked that search. I asked Icarus, on the drive back from Margaret's search on the day we called it off, whether he had ever known anyone who followed one of those staircases up and came back to talk about it. He kept his eyes on the road for a long moment before he answered. "Nobody comes back and talks about it the way you mean," he said. "Not the way you are hopping. That is the whole rule, Hollies. You see the stairs, you leave. You do not follow them to find out where they go, because the people who do find out do not come back to describe it to the rest of us." That was the last thing either of us said about Margaret Weathers for a long time. Rule number 3, you always carry a pack of mint Tic Tacs, and they have to be green, never orange, never any other flavor or color. Every ranger vehicle in this park keeps a spare pack in the glove compartment, and most of us carry one in a pocket during every single shift, whether we believe in the reason behind the rule or not. This rule connects to a crow. A specific crow, one that has lived somewhere in the western half of the park for as long as any current ranger can remember, and that most of the staff refer to without much ceremony as Tic Tac. Crows are common in Yosemite. You will see dozens of them on any given day, scavenging around picnic areas, following hikers along popular trails hopping for dropped food. This particular crow stands out because of a small patch of white feathers on its left wing, visible even from a distance, and because of a behavior none of us have ever seen in another bird in this park. It approaches rangers specifically, not tourists, and it appears to recognize the sound of a tic-tac box being shaken. Nobody knows how that association started. Icarus told me it predates his own time at the park, which means it goes back at least 3 decades, possibly longer. What every ranger agrees on is that the crow responds only to the green mint flavor. Rangers who have tried offering it orange Tic Tacs, thinking any flavor would do, describe the same reaction every time. The crow will not approach. It circles at a distance, agitated, calling in a way rangers describe as distinctly different from its normal call, and it will not come near again for days afterward. Some of the older guys used to say orange means something else is around, Icarus told me once. Something the crow does not want near it either. I do not know if that is true. I know I have never once carried an orange Tic Tac into these woods, and I do not plan to start. The clearest example of why this rule matters happened during a search for a 6-year-old girl named Emily Parker on a warm afternoon in early September. Emily had been camping with her family near Crane Flat and had wandered away from their site while her parents were setting up dinner, a gap of no more than 10 minutes by her mother's account. When they realized she was gone, the sun was already getting low, and Emily was wearing only a t-shirt and shorts with no jacket. I was one of 4 rangers who responded to that call. We had maybe 2 hours of usable daylight left, and a 6-year-old lost in unfamiliar forest as temperatures drop is one of the most urgent situations this job puts in front of you. Children that age develop hypothermia far faster than adults, and panic makes them harder to find because their instinct is often to hide rather than call out. We had been searching for around 40 minutes, spread out along a grid from the campsite when the crow appeared. I noticed it first, landing on a branch maybe 15 feet ahead of me, watching me directly in a way that felt deliberate rather than curious. I had a pack of green Tic Tacs in my jacket pocket, the way I always did, and I shook the box. The crow flew to a branch closer to me, then to another, moving in a direction slightly off from the search grid I had been assigned. I called it in over the radio, told my team I was going to follow the bird for a short distance, and one other ranger redirected to stay near me in case I needed backup. Crow led us roughly 400 yards off the planned search grid, into a section of forest none of the teams had reached yet, and stopped on a low branch above a fallen log. Emily Parker was curled up against the base of that log, hugging her knees, crying too quietly for her voice to have carried more than a few feet in any direction. She was cold, frightened, and had a scraped knee from a fall earlier, but she was alive, and we had enough daylight left to walk her out before full dark. Her mother, once reunited with Emily at the trailhead, asked how we had found her so far from where anyone expected to search. I did not have a good answer that satisfied me, so I told her the truth in the simplest way I could. A bird led us to her. She thanked the bird sincerely, the way you thank anyone in a moment like that, without asking a single follow-up question, and I have always respected her for not needing an explanation beyond what mattered to her right then. I have a daughter myself, Sadie, who was about the same age as Emily that year. I did not tell her mother that detail, but I thought about it the entire drive home that night, and I have thought about it many times since. I keep a pack of green Tic Tacs in my own truck at home now too, not for any ranger reason, just because that afternoon changed something in how I think about small, strange kindnesses in this park. My own direct experience with whatever is behind this rule happened almost a year later, during an overnight shift at one of the backcountry ranger cabins near Tuolumne Meadows. I was alone that night, doing routine radio checks and paperwork, when I heard something at the cabin window sometime after midnight. It sounded almost like a crow's call, the same rough, clipped sound I had heard dozens of times from Tic Tac and every other crow in the park. Almost, there was something in the rhythm of it that did not match, a pause in the wrong place, a second note tacked onto the end that no crow I had ever heard produced. I looked toward the window and saw a shape perched on the sill outside, dark, roughly the size of a bird, but positioned in a way that struck me as wrong before I could explain why. Most birds perch with their body facing forward. This shape sat with its head, turned almost completely backward, watching the room through the glass while its body remained angled toward the trees behind it. I had a pack of green Tic Tacs sitting on the desk in front of me. I did not open the window. I did not shake the box. I sat completely still. Every instinct I had told me that moving would only draw it closer, and after almost 2 full minutes, the shape dropped from the sill and was gone. I called Icarus the next morning and described exactly what I had seen. He was quiet for a while before he responded. "That is not Tic Tac," he said. "Tic Tac does not come to the cabins at night, and Tic Tac does not sit like that. You did the right thing staying still. Whatever that was, it wanted you to open that window yourself. It was not going to come in on its own." I asked him what he thought it actually was. He told me, the same way he had told me about the water, that nobody knew, and that the not knowing was the point. The rule was not really about a crow at all, not entirely. The rule was about making sure that whatever else might be listening for the sound of a tic-tac box, whatever the color orange was rumored to draw closer, never had a reason to think you were calling for it instead. I have carried green Tic Tacs on every single shift since that night. I do not carry orange ones at all, not even in my own car, not even at home. Sadie thinks it is a funny habit her dad has. I have never explained the real reason to her, and I do not plan to until she is much older, if I ever do at all. Rule number 4. If you ever find a mirror standing alone in the forest, with no house around it and no reason for it to be there, you cover it immediately with whatever cloth or tarp you have on hand. Then you break it. Then you bury every piece in a separate hole, spaced far enough apart that no 2 pieces end up touching the same patch of dirt. Of the 4 rules on that list, this is the one every ranger treats with the most caution, and it is the one Icarus Jones cared about more than any other rule I have ever seen him follow. I did not understand why until he finally told me the full story, 3 years into my time at this park, on a night when we were the only 2 rangers on duty at the main station. The story starts back in the 1970s, before I was born, when a ranger named Emmett Cole was still young in this job. Emmett was the man who trained Icarus decades later, when Icarus was the rookie learning the ropes the same way I once did with Icarus himself. By the time Icarus met him, Emmett Cole had already been at Yosemite for close to 20 years, and everyone on staff treated him the way we later treated Icarus, with a quiet respect nobody had to ask for. In the summer of 1974, Emmett was paired with another young ranger named Dale Prout on a routine patrol near the Tioga Road corridor. This was before the 4 unofficial rules existed in any organized form. Whatever had lived in these woods before that summer had not yet forced the rangers of this park to write anything down, even informally, even by word of mouth. Emmett and Dale found a mirror standing alone in a clearing during that patrol, a full-length mirror in an ornate wooden frame, the kind of piece you would expect to find in a Victorian bedroom, not propped against a tree miles from the nearest road. Neither of them knew to be afraid of it. There was no rule yet telling them what to do. Dale walked up to it first. Emmett told Icarus, and Icarus told me, that Dale stood in front of that mirror for almost a full minute without saying anything, which struck Emmett as strange even before anything else happened, because Dale was not a quiet man by nature. When Emmett finally asked him what he was looking at, Dale answered without turning around. "There is someone standing behind me," he said, "but there is nobody behind me." Emmett looked, there was nobody there. When he looked back at the mirror, he told Icarus. The reflection showed Dale from behind, exactly as a normal mirror would, except that in the reflection, Dale's head was turned to look directly at his own reflected face, at an angle that did not match how Dale was actually standing in the clearing. Dale reached out and touched the glass. Emmett grabbed his arm to pull him back, and for one moment he said, his hand found empty space where Dale's arm should have been, as though Dale himself had become less solid than a moment before. Then his hand found Dale's arm again, solid, real, and he pulled him back hard enough that they both fell to the ground. Dale was fine physically in the moment right after. Shaken, confused about how long he had actually been standing there, but fine. They left the mirror where it stood and hiked back to report what happened, and by the time a follow-up team went out to examine it, the mirror was gone, the same way the staircases disappear. Dale Prout was never quite the same after that day, according to Emmett. He stayed at the park for another 8 months, but he stopped sleeping through the night, and he told Emmett more than once that he sometimes caught his own reflection doing something a half second before he actually did it, in windows, in truck mirrors, in the glass of the ranger station door. He requested a transfer to a park in a different state the following spring, and Emmett lost touch with him within a couple of years. Icarus told me that Emmett tried to find him decades later, when records became easier to search, and found no trace of a Dale Prout anywhere in the National Park Service system after that transfer. No forwarding record, nothing, whether that meant something or simply meant a man had left the service and lived an ordinary life under circumstances Emmett never learned. Nobody could say for certain. What mattered, Icarus told me, was that Emmett Cole spent the rest of his career treating that rule as sacred. He was the one who worked out, through trial and error over the years that followed, that covering a mirror immediately stopped whatever process had started with Dale from progressing any further. He was the one who determined that breaking the mirror mattered, and that burying the pieces separately mattered even more, based on incidents I never got the full details of. Incidents, Icarus said, were not his to tell because they were not his stories to begin with. Emmett made me swear I would take this rule more seriously than any of the others, Icarus told me that night. He said the water might take you, and the stairs might take you, but the mirror does not just take you. It replaces you if you let it get far enough, and nobody notices right away when it does. I asked him what that meant, replaces you. He would not explain further, and I did not push him, because by that point in my career I had learned that Icarus only ever told you exactly as much as he thought you needed, and pushing past that point never got me anywhere. I experienced this rule directly for myself 2 years after that conversation, on a patrol with both Icarus and Jareth Mitchell, in a remote section of forest near the Hetch Hetchy area that rarely sees hikers, even in peak season. We were checking on reports of an abandoned campsite that a passing backpacker had flagged to the wilderness office, concerned that someone might have left gear behind in an emergency. We found the campsite exactly where it had been reported, apparently abandoned in a hurry, a tent still half staked into the ground, a cold fire pit, and a single backpack leaning against a boulder. There was no mirror anywhere near the tent itself. We found it about 80 yards further into the trees, standing upright against the trunk of a large cedar, as though someone had carried it out there and propped it up deliberately. It was an old mirror, full length, in a wooden frame carved with a pattern of leaves along the edges, the varnish dulled and cracked with age. None of us said much when we saw it. Icarus simply nodded once and told Jareth to get the canvas tarp from his pack. We covered it first, without looking directly into the glass any longer than it took to get the tarp over the frame. My own reflection, in the half second I saw it before the tarp went over, showed me standing slightly closer to the mirror than I actually was, close enough that if it had been accurate, I would have been touching the frame with my chest. I was not that close. I stepped back immediately after we finished covering it, and I did not look at that mirror again until it was time to break it. Icarus used the flat side of a hatchet to break the glass while it was still covered by the tarp, striking it through the fabric so that none of us had to look at the moment the surface actually shattered. The sound was lower and duller than breaking glass should be, and it continued slightly longer than the strike itself should have caused. A faint sound persisting after the hatchet had already stopped moving. We dug the holes ourselves, 3 of us working with small folding shovels from our packs, spaced roughly 20 feet apart from each other in 3 different directions from where the mirror had stood. Icarus was specific about the distance and specific about handling the pieces with gloves, wrapping each fragment individually in a piece of cloth before placing it in its hole. He told us not to look directly at any piece longer than necessary while we worked, and none of us needed to be told twice. It took almost 2 hours to finish, and by the time we were done, the light in the forest had shifted enough that we hiked back to the trucks with headlamps on. Nobody spoke much on that hike. Jareth broke the silence eventually, saying only that he had needed a job change after his diving days for a reason, and this was reminding him exactly why. The story that convinced me, completely and permanently, that this rule mattered more than any of the others happened the following year, and it involved a boy named Cale Whitfield. Cale was 9 years old, camping with his family at a campground near White Wolf, a quieter, less crowded area of the park than the main valley floor. On the second evening of their trip, Cale wandered away from the family campsite while his parents were occupied with dinner preparations. the same kind of brief, ordinary gap in attention that happens at almost every campsite in this park on almost every night of the season. When his mother called for him 10 minutes later and got no answer, panic set in fast, and the call came into the park within 20 minutes of him being noticed missing. I was part of the response team, along with Icarus. We searched through the night and into the following day, expanding the grid steadily outward from the campsite, and found nothing. No footprints in the soft dirt that we could confidently attach to a 9-year-old boy. No scent trail the dogs could hold for more than a few hundred yards before losing it entirely, which itself was unusual, because dogs in this park typically hold a scent far longer than that in stable weather conditions. Cale's parents, a young couple named Marcus and Priya Whitfield, stayed at the command post for the full 2 days of the search, and I do not have adequate words to describe what that kind of waiting does to a parent, so I am not going to attempt it. I will only say that everyone on that search team worked harder because of how they carried themselves through it, without complaint, without blame directed at anyone, simply present and waiting and hopping. Cale was found on the morning of the 3rd day, sitting calmly at the edge of a meadow almost 2 miles from the campsite, an area that had already been searched twice in the previous 48 hours without any sign of him. He was not injured. He was not dehydrated in any way that matched someone who had been missing outdoors for 2 full nights in a row. His clothes were clean. He was, by every physical measure the responding paramedics took, in better condition than a boy who had spent 2 nights alone in the wilderness should have been. He was also different, in a way his parents noticed within the first hour of getting him back, and in a way I noticed myself when I helped carry him out to the trailhead. He was quieter than the description his parents had given us of him before the search, calmer than a 9-year-old boy usually is after an ordeal like that, and he kept looking at his own reflection whenever he passed anything reflective, the window of the ambulance, the chrome trim on a parked vehicle, with an expression his mother described to me later as recognition rather than curiosity, as though he were checking that something matched. It took almost a full week before Cale told his parents anything about where he had been, and it took another 2 weeks before his mother felt comfortable sharing what he had said with Icarus, who had asked gently, during a follow-up visit, whether Cale remembered anything at all. Cale told her he had found a mirror near the edge of their campsite that first evening, propped against a rock, and that he had looked into it because he thought he saw another boy about his age standing on the other side of it, in a place that looked almost exactly like their campsite, except the fire was already lit, and his parents were sitting by it laughing in a way he said felt slightly wrong, though he could not explain what was wrong about it. He said the other boy told him to come see the other camp, and that once he stepped through, he could not find his way back to the mirror again, though he never described exactly how the stepping through happened, only that one moment he was looking and the next he was standing in a clearing that looked like the meadow near their campsite but was not quite the same, with trees in slightly wrong places and a sky that stayed the same shade of grey no matter how much time passed. He said there were other people at the other camp, though he struggled to describe them clearly, and that some of them seemed happy to see him, and some of them seemed like they were trying very hard to remember why they were there at all. He mentioned, almost in passing, a woman who kept a cardigan sweater folded in her lap the entire time he saw her, sitting near what he described as steps that did not lead anywhere, though his mother told Icarus she did not think much of that detail at the time, and only repeated it because Cale had mentioned it specifically. I was in the room when Icarus heard that detail. I watched his face when Cale's mother repeated it, and for the first time since I had known him, I saw Icarus look afraid. Cale said he did not remember how he got back. He remembered sitting down in the meadow where we found him. And he remembered that it felt like only a few minutes had passed since he first saw the other boy in the mirror, though everyone around him kept telling him it had been 2 full days. Cale Whitfield is doing well today, as far as I know. His parents moved his follow-up care to a child psychologist near their home, and Marcus Whitfield sent Icarus a letter almost a year later saying that Cale had started sleeping through the night again, that he had stopped checking his reflection compulsively, that he was, slowly, becoming the same easy, talkative boy he had been before that trip. Children recover more fully than most adults give them credit for, and I hold on to that fact whenever I think about what Cale described. Icarus never fully explained what he thought had happened to Cale, or to Margaret Weathers, or to Dale Prout decades earlier. What he told me, the last time we discussed it, was this. The water rule and the stairs rule, I think those things are hunting, he said. Waiting for you to make a mistake, waiting for you to get curious. The mirror is different. I think the mirror is a door, and I think whatever is on the other side of it wants exactly what Cale described. It wants you to see something that looks close enough to the life you already have that you walk toward it on your own. That is why we cover it first before anything else. You cover the door before you ever risk looking at what might be looking back. That is why of every rule on that list, The mirror rule is the one none of us will ever break, not once, not under any circumstance. The water might drown you, the stairs might lead you somewhere you cannot return from. But the mirror, if Icarus is right, does not just threaten to take something from you. It offers you a version of your own life that looks close enough to keep you walking forward, and by the time you understand the difference, you are already standing on the other side of the glass. I have been a ranger at Yosemite for a little over 8 years now, and in that time, I have followed every rule on that unofficial list without a single exception, and so has every ranger I trust to work alongside. I want to be clear about something before I finish. The rules work. Every ranger who has followed them, every one I have known personally, has walked out of these woods at the end of their shift and gone home to the people waiting for them. Icarus is retiring next year, after more than 30 years of service, healthy, sharp, and looking forward to spending his time fishing instead of patrolling. Jareth still works patrol duty today, steady and glad to be here, even though he never goes underwater anymore. I go home every night to my wife and my daughter Sadie, and I have never once regretted a single precaution I have taken in these woods. Cale Whitfield is back to being a normal, happy 9-year-old boy, according to the last letter his father sent us, riding his bike around his neighborhood and asking his parents when they can go camping again. Margaret Weathers' family, though they never got the ending they hoped for, found enough peace to establish a small memorial bench near the trail where she loved to sit, and I stopped there sometimes on quiet mornings, just to sit for a minute the way she used to. This park is not haunted in the way people mean when they use that word for an old house or a graveyard. It is not a place of malice waiting to hurt you. It is, I believe, simply older and stranger than most of us are comfortable admitting, and it has learned to coexist with the people who visit it every year by asking for 4 small, specific forms of respect in return. Follow them, and you will very likely be fine. Every ranger on this staff is proof of that. I am not telling you this to frighten you away from Yosemite, or from any national park you might be planning to visit. I am telling you because these places deserve to be seen, and because millions of people walk through parks like this one every single year and go home exactly the way they arrived, with nothing stranger to report than a good story about a deer or a waterfall. But if you are ever out on a trail in a place like this, and you come across water running strangely calm above a drop you cannot see the bottom of, or a staircase standing by itself with nothing at the top or bottom to explain it, or a crow that seems a little too interested in what is in your pocket, or a mirror propped against a tree with no house anywhere in sight, I want you to remember what I told you today. Stay out of the water above the fall. Leave the staircase alone. Carry green Tic Tacs, not orange. And if you see a mirror standing alone in those woods, cover it first before you do anything else, before curiosity gets the better of you the way it did for a young ranger back in 1974. Follow those 4 rules, and I believe you will be just fine. I have been every single day for the past 8 years, and I plan on being a ranger at this park for a long time to come. Just this season, a new staircase was reported near Tuolumne Meadows by a backpacking group who did exactly the right thing. They took a photograph from a distance, backed away, and radioed it in. By the time our team arrived, it was gone, the same way they always are. Some things in these woods are simply part of how this place works. We have learned to live alongside them, carefully, respectfully, and so far, that has been more than enough.